I decided to sign up for my first marathon, which is completely different than anything I would have expected of myself like 8 years ago. Marathon is about 26.2 miles, and just the idea of running that much consistently at any pace is daunting, let alone like a fast pace. So the marathon I signed up for was the Walt Disney World Marathon. It took place this past January. Essentially, it's a course around Walt Disney World that starts and ends at Epcot, but you go to the other parks. The majority of the race is around all the different roads, to be honest, and parking lots of these parks. But they do slice up the course with like decorations, obviously mile markers, timing markers. There are like character meet and greets that you can do. So it's a really popular race, especially in a lot of people that like to travel to Orlando and travel to Disney specifically, sign up for this race. Some of them with no running background, some with like years of running. Some people have done this race ever since it got created. If anybody here watching this has ever signed up for runDisney race, not just how cutthroat it is to get in and get on the website and register and everything, but they are not cheap races. So this is definitely one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive race I've still signed up for. I originally was going to not get a spot because they ran out during the sign-up day, and about 3 months later I got a Twitter notification saying, hey, there's all these races open for marathon weekend. There's like other things they do, a 5K, 10K, half marathon. They do like a whole challenge where if you do Dopey, you do all 4 races. Still mind-boggling to me. Maybe one day I'll do it. But then also do like a goofy challenge where they do the half marathon and the full marathon. But I just wanted to you know what, let me just get done this marathon. I want to see what this is like. And luckily too, like a week or two before, I was actually contemplating signing up for an earlier marathon in the Philadelphia marathon. So what I did was I actually turned my marathon registration into a half marathon registration for Philadelphia as a training run. So that took place about 6 to 7 weeks before Walt Disney World. So that was like one of my initial ideas for training. It's okay, like I should do some races to build up to not just this distance, but also practice the race day morning and everything, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. Besides racing, the majority of the work you're doing for any of these runs is going to be all pretty much by yourself. And depending on what season you're in, you might not have the best weather or anything. So I made my marathon training plan to start around early October of 2024 and then pretty much peak around Christmas time. So this is like December, and then taper for about 2-ish weeks until the race on January 12th. Pretty much all through that, you go through very end of summer / the beginning of the fall, as well as also the changing of the seasons, and then get into possibly snow and freezing rain and ice when you get towards like December, January time. So I pretty much saw everything when I was training, and it was definitely getting tough towards the end of training, having to not just deal with like longer runs, because you're not starting out at 100% your weekly mileage. You're going to be starting out at a fraction of what you're going to actually end up peaking at, especially as a beginner like me. So I made my training plan pretty much, to be honest, through ChatGPT, and it helped with some Google links that I found, which I don't actually remember, but they were just pace calculators. You guys can find a lot of them online. And I consulted some other friends that I had at work as well as at school that I had weeks about 5-ish runs a week, sometimes 6, where I would do mainly easy runs, but at the same time I would have like one speed workout and like one long run. Those were like my 2 big requirements, is each week to have 2 key workouts. And my goal that I set before the race training started was a 3:30 marathon, which is a little bit over an 8-minute mile pace. So I was previously running around a 22-minute 5K. So comparable to that, I would have a lot of work to. It was definitely a doable. I believe in myself a lot, but it was also like to be a completely different beast than a 5K. During the initial phase of cycling, or of the marathon training cycle, or gradually increase your mileage, you're supposed to not really do anything more than 10% between week to week of increase. I was doing roughly about 1 mile, so I was even taking it slower. So when I ran the half marathon, I ran about an hour 28, a little bit under that, which shocked me because I knew that the hour 28 was like a good mark to hit, like anything sub half or hour and a half. I didn't realize that the pace that I was running at was sub 650, which again completely caught me by surprise. It was after that I wanted to realign my marathon goal. Originally, I wanted to do around a 3:30, like I said earlier. My new goal that I set after the half marathon was a 3:05 marathon, with the stretch goal being a sub 3 hour. Pretty much all that work got put in for 16 weeks. We were traveling down to Disney World. I was really strict on like any kind of meal I had to have some kind of heavy carb in it. And I also made sure to emphasize protein like right after my runs for that recovery. So we got down to Disney, and luckily they have a ton of options when it comes to different, I'd say, pastas and rice. If you've ever been to Disney, there's a million different restaurants, no matter what park you're in, no matter what area of the resort you're on. So we had, I believe it was the restaurant that is above Enzo's Hideaway in Disney Springs, like my pre-race lunch, which is a big like pasta, chicken parm meal that was really good. And then I think I just had 2 bagels in our All-Stars hotel room for my dinner. I didn't want to have such a big dinner that my stomach's gonna get upset or anything, so I made sure to emphasize the lunch calories more than the dinner calories. And I got to bed probably at 7 p.m. and it's because the race started at 1 a.m. the next day. And I don't mean the actual race did, but at least when I had to get up started at 1 a.m. So I had everything laid out and whatnot. I tried not to wake anybody up in the room and stuff. Luckily, my girlfriend's uncle was also running the race the same day, and he has done this Disney World Marathon a couple of different times before. So he gave me a resort lobby for the buses that take us to the starting corrals, and then we both got into our starting corral. We were both in a corral based off my proof of time that I gave. We're in the corrals for a little under an hour, and then finally the race gets started, and we are in the first wave of people. If you know anything about Disney races, they get very crowded, especially when you get towards the back of the corral. So I was very fortunate to be able to have started in this A corral, to not have that huge crowd in the beginning of us trying to block the path and everything, but still got a little bit. You have to get your way around people and stuff, which you have to do very respectfully. I'm not encouraging anybody to just like straight up run through people. That's not going to give you a good experience. Not going to give them a good experience. We get into Epcot at the first 5K-ish of the race, and then you're on a very long road from Epcot to about mile 8 or 9 to Walt Disney World's most famous park, which is Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is probably my favorite part of the race, where I had my girlfriend was on Main Street and she was like had a sign for me and everything cheering. That's about like the 8 to 9 mile range of the race, and you pretty much do mile 9 and 10 all in the park, which is like really cool to be in. They have all the rides running. They also have like all the night lights on and everything. Then you exit the park. This is the first of 2, I'd say, like huge mental battles you have to go through during the race. So this one is a little bit easier than the second one, and it's because it's earlier in the race. So you do pretty much mile like 11 to 14, 15, all in parking lots or side streets. And these streets aren't like the ones the buses usually travel. These are like ones like cast members going to travel on. So you don't even know that these roads exist until you run this race. They do have a lot of like different music DJs around. They have obviously waters, bananas, hydration with Gatorades and electrolytes, stuff like that. I know during the mile like 12 to 14 was like this like weird like Star Wars like valley area where they had a bunch of characters up, as well like the music and the fog machines made it look like a Star Wars scene. That all led you to Animal Kingdom, which was park number 3 of this marathon. And this is a very short park. You only really go past Expedition Everest and then to the front of the park. Not really even like the entrance of the park, the side area where the Triceratops bin used to be and like Dinosaur is still currently. And then you exit the park and get into mental battle number 2, which is going to be about mile 16 till 21, 22 roughly. And this whole thing is either the streets or the infamous mile 20 of Blizzard Beach parking lot. They quite literally have you do about a mile and a half out and back in a parking lot of one of their water parks. And because of not just the fact that it's Florida, there's no shade in the parking lot or anything, but it also is mile 20 of a marathon. I've never felt that tired ever in my life. Felt probably even worse than I did after my first 5K during this time. But they do have a lot of cast members and volunteers that cheering you on throughout trying to get you through that parking lot, because they know that's probably one of the most dreaded areas, because right after the parking lot you have this slight little incline into a decline over an overpass where the cars are usually driving, but you're running to Hollywood Studios to get to your final park. Not final park of the race, but at least final new park. And That uphill after the parking lot is brutal. It's not really that steep or anything, but just because of how late it is in the marathon, makes it much more treacherous. So you get into Hollywood Studios, and I think you're in Hollywood Studios even less time than you were in Animal Kingdom. You come past Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, go down, I think it's called Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard or something, I forget what it's called. Then you exit through the front of the park this time, going past the Skyliner, and then if you ever stayed at one of the back Epcot resorts, Swan and Dolphin, a Boardwalk, Beach Club, Yacht Club, you know about that walking path that goes between the Boardwalk and Hollywood Studios? Well, you're running towards those resorts from Hollywood Studios on that path. I'll do a lot of like my morning runs around that area, and now all I can think about is like that being around like mile 24 of the Disney World Marathon. And that leads you into the back entrance of Epcot, but they don't take you into the France Pavilion. They take you on the side, I'd say by like more Canada, UK area, and then you go past the Epcot ball, you go past some of the stuff on Test Track, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, and Mission Space, and then you exit Epcot for the last time. You do a little bit of an S-bend before going into the final stretch where there's all the bleachers and like a huge finish line sign and everything. We crossed the finish line, and I finished in a time of 3 hours and 56 seconds. So I met my A goal. I was about 56 seconds off my A+ goal, but because it was my first marathon, I was just crazy, like ecstatic. It was one of the most like surreal things crossing that finish line and just thinking about, wow, really just did that. 8th grade or high school me could have never imagined something like that happen. So it was incredible. Of course, I was like the most drained energy wise I've ever been in my life. It stopped me from still going to the parks that day. I don't think I could have had asked for a better first marathon experience. Very thankful for everybody that supported me along the way. Biggest takeaway I've got from this entire experience was just like putting in the work, staying disciplined, staying the course, even on the days that feel terrible, even when progress isn't going to be linear, it's going to be up and down. Just learning to always keep that level-headed mindset of, okay, there's always the next day. Let's just get to the next day. Let's just like figure out like how we're gonna get through this now and get to the next day. I think that's what really kept me going through. So that being said, what's next? Let's just say I'm currently working on what's next, and it's super exciting. Whether it actually happens or not will be one thing. There will for sure be a video about it, but I've been really meaning to record this for months. It is Thursday, July 17th, and I ran this race over 6 months ago at this point, and it took me this month long to figure out everything, how I wanted to record, what I wanted to talk about. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and I'm hoping that I can provide some more content.
There he is! Good morning, congratulations!
Thanks for coming out this early.